Hey guys, thank you for joining me today here. This is a different setup from usual. I'm not on the mat sharing any sort of yin yoga sequences, but today is a different video. I wanted to come on here and share my chronic pain journey with you guys. I have a bunch of notes here because I don't want to miss anything. First off, let me start off by saying what is chronic pain? For those of you who don't know what it is. So, chronic pain is any sort of pain that can last for a couple of months or more. A lot of the pain that people will experience, it really feels like your body is on fire, right? It's anything from muscular pain, like neck pain, shoulder pain, hand pain, leg pain, any sort of muscular part of your body, joint pain, shooting pain, numbness, tingling, migraines. A lot of autoimmune diseases have painful symptoms like fibromyalgia, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, inflammation, fatigue. Um, I'm hoping I'm not missing anything, but those are some. Oh, yes, I am. A lot of gut issues like gallbladder issues, IBS, IBO. Uh, I'm hoping I'm not missing anything. Things like that are considered chronic pain because I feel that sometimes people don't know what it is. Another thing with chronic pain is because you can't see it. A lot of times people can't understand that you are in pain because you don't look like you're in pain, because you still wear makeup and you still do your hair and you still come out looking presentable. They don't believe that you're in pain. So people who experience chronic pain tend to mask it really well because they don't want people to have pity for them. They also want to still be able to function and not feel like they've lost themselves because they feel like they don't recognize themselves anymore. You went from living a normal life to now having to cope with all this pain while continuing to be a mother, continuing to be an employee, a friend, a business owner, a sister, aunt, a child. Like, you are expected to continue living through life through this pain, right? So let's start with that. And pain is very subjective, right? Like, so a lot of us experience issues with the healthcare system where we're not believed by doctors because they're like, oh, well, your tests are clean, so I don't know what's going on with you. Like, we can't figure out what's going on with you because the MRI is clean, the EMG test is clean, the sonogram is clean. Like, no, there's nothing wrong with you, yet the patient is in excruciating pain. So that's just one part of it, right? But I wanted to talk about my chronic pain journey that at the time I didn't know that's what I was dealing with because I had no idea what chronic pain was. So let's backtrack, right? Um, I started my menstrual cycle at about 14. And from the time that I could remember starting my menstrual cycle, I used to get excruciating abdominal pain when I would have my menstrual cycle, to the point that I couldn't go to school. I remember I would cry and my mom would have to give me like hot packs. It was just really bad, and nothing, like, the only thing I could do was rest and try to sleep it off, right? So that led me to having a very high tolerance for pain. I've always been somebody who's had a high tolerance for pain. And just to give you an example of what I mean by that, I have 4 kids, and my first daughter was about 7 pounds. She was the smallest out of all of them. She was the only one that I got drugs for when I gave birth to her. And to be honest, it was more because I was scared than me needing it, because I was like so terrified of the experience. I'm like, give me all the fucking drugs. My last 3 kids were huge. They were 9 and 10 pounders, and I had them without any medication. So just to give you an idea of how my tolerance for pain, right? So it started off with that, and then moving on into my 20s, I remember getting a lot of migraines, and they would be excruciating to the point I couldn't get out of bed. And it was just, and it, now looking back, I've noticed that those migraines would happen when I was going through a very stressful time in my life. And my 20s were some of the most stressful time in my life because I had my daughter at 18, 19 years old. Um, I moved out of my house with her and her father when I was like about 20, 21. And we separated when she was about maybe 4. So from the time she was 4 up until I met my now husband when she was like 9, I was a single mom. And on top of being a single young mom, I also became the pillar for my family. So my mom was going through a lot of financial hardship. My older sister was going through a domestic violence situation. And I became the hub for everyone. I became the safe space for everyone. So my mom and my nieces ended up staying with me a lot of the times. I became that safe space for them. And I took on a lot of the responsibility that a mother would have or should have taken on. But because my mother couldn't, it trickled down to my older sister. And because she couldn't, it trickled down to me. And because I could, it stayed with me. So, and I've learned all of this through therapy of how I have the older sibling syndrome, right? Where I'm the one who is like basically the second parent, but in my case, a lot of the time, the only parent. And I was the middle child, so I had the double whammy. Um, but I was also going through my own financial hardship at the time when all of this was happening, and I was going through a very stressful time to the point that I remember one time I was going to work. I was living in Queens at the time, working in the city, and I was on the F train. It was a crowded, packed train, so I was standing, and next thing you know, I fainted. And I this was around the time that I was separating from my daughter's father. And so I was just going through so much stress. I didn't know how I was going to pay the bills. It was just a very stressful time. And I remember one time my father came to visit me and he was like, "Are you on drugs?" Because I had lost so much weight. And I'm a tall girl, I'm 5'7". So I can hold a lot of weight and not look heavy. But when I lose too much weight, I look sick. So right now I'm like 195, 196, and I don't look it, right? But at that time I had gone down to like 130, 140, and I looked sick. Like you could see my collarbone, my eyes were sunken in, my face was like, I just looked really bad. And I didn't know this. People were telling me, like, is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, another thing with people who deal with chronic pain. Yes, I'm fine, but you're really not. um, so that happened. And then I remember my mom was living with me at the time, and my niece would live with me a lot at the time. And sometimes my sister would come and live with me at the time when she was fleeing from her abusive boyfriend. And it was just a lot happening, and I was trying to keep the family together. Being so young, it was a lot of responsibility that was put upon me, and I was trying to deal with it the best that I could. And I realized, not when I was preparing for this video, of all the things that had happened and the timeline, and it's all making sense. It's like the pieces to the puzzle are coming together, and the puzzle is finally completed, where I'm seeing the trajectory and I'm seeing the path of how I got here, right? Which is why now that I'm out of the chronic pain cycle, I'm so grateful for my chronic pain, and I look at it as a gift. And I'll get more into that later. Um, but that happened. I remember I had lost my job and I was facing eviction, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to put food on the table. And I was still trying to be a mom, still trying to be a daughter, still trying to be an aunt, still trying to act like everything was fine when my world was crumbling. It was crumbling, and I wasn't getting any help and any support from anyone. I was just, everybody was taking and taking and taking, and nobody was giving. And it was taking a toll on my body, and I didn't realize it at the time, and now I do. And I remember in my late 20s, it's happened like maybe 2000, 1999, something like that. I ended up getting woken up from my sleep um with excruciating abdominal pain. Like, listen, I would rather give birth to 20 children naturally than to deal with this kind of pain I was having in my abdominal area. And what, like, it would last for hours. I remember I would the only thing that brought some sort of relief was getting on all fours on the floor. The pain was so excruciating that I remember I I would silent cry because I didn't want to wake up my daughter. I would silent cry because the pain was so excruciating. And I remember one time it was so bad that I finally went to the emergency room, because I'm also that type of person that I will live through the pain. I will continue on and just like bear with it, right? And like not go to the doctor. But this time I was like, no, I have to go to the doctor. Ended up in the emergency room, and I remember the doctor coming in and telling me, he was like, you have to stop eating McDonald's. And I was like, eating McDonald's? I don't even eat McDonald's like that. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, you have to stop eating greasy foods. And I'm like, I don't even eat greasy food like that. I don't know, like, what do you mean? And he was like, you've been eating a lot of greasy foods, and what you're experiencing are gallbladder stones, and we need to remove your gallbladder. And I was like, remove my gallbladder? Like, don't I need that to like live? And he's like, no, you can live without a gallbladder. So I was like, okay. They took the gallbladder out, and I never got that pain again. But now looking back in retrospect, I see why all of this was happening, because now with all the research that I've been doing with this chronic pain and what causes it, and like why your body's on fire, it's your body communicating to you and saying no, saying you need to stop doing the most, you you need to stop, right? And it's basically your nervous system like on fire, right? And so I didn't know that at the time. So got the gallbladder removed in late 90s, early 2000s. I can't remember exactly when. And fast forward to, I would say, after my third child, maybe he was like maybe 2, 3 years old. Maybe he was like 2 years old. So maybe this was like 2010. I remember getting ready for work in the morning. And just to give you some context, our commute was very stressful. We would be up by 5 in the morning, round up the kids, get them ready, commute an hour to work, drive in, find parking, do the school drop offs, go to work, deal with a very highly stressful job. At the time, I was in human resources, and human resources is a very anxiety inducing industry. And for somebody who deals and suffers with or lives with anxiety on a daily basis, human resources is not the industry you want to go to, because human resources is a very you're living in the future when you're working in HR. You're preparing for the worst, anticipating for the worst that may never happen. And so you're always on alert. You're always putting out fires. You're always 10 steps ahead of the employee. You're always planning ahead and trying to avoid chaos from happening. But in the midst of all of that, you are running yourself to the ground. And so for somebody who is trying to be on a healing journey, you're trying to be grounded and present, that's like very counterintuitive of like, I'm trying to be more present, I'm trying to be more grounded, I'm trying to like tame my anxiety in my personal life, but in my professional life and in my career, I'm doing the complete opposite. So it's like an uphill battle. It's like you're trying to surf a tidal wave, like you're trying to do the impossible, right? So back to the story of like, I was getting dressed in the morning, and I remember I fell on my bed. Like my body fell on my bed, because what ended up happening is I couldn't lift my head. My head was too heavy and I couldn't lift it. My body couldn't hold my head. And so I ended up falling on the bed, like face first. And I was yelling for my husband, Robert, to come. I was like, he's like, what's going on? I'm like, I can't lift my head. I don't know what's going on. Oh my God. Like, it was so scary because I felt like I lost control of everything. And I don't know how we ended up getting to the emergency room, but we got to the emergency room and they said that something with a nerve in my neck. I don't really remember what the doctor said. It was one of those Charlie Brown moments, but he gave me a muscle relaxant. And I didn't like it because I felt like I was high as a kite. And I've never really been high like that. So I'm just like, but if I felt like those dope heads you see like on Delancey Street or somewhere high as hell on heroin. I remember even when I called my job to call out, she couldn't even like understand what I was saying because she said I sounded so high. But long story short, that happened. And that had to have been maybe in 2011. Um, so that was that. Fast forward to 2016, I was in another highly stressful job. So if you see the commonality here, it's stress. I was in a highly stressful job again in human resources, and I had for the first time a panic attack. I never experienced a panic attack. I didn't know what it was. All I know is I felt like I heard or was in the presence of an elephant trampede. Is that what they call that? Like when they're like elephants are running. I don't know if I'm saying the word right, but I heard like a loud and I was like, what the is that? And the first time that it happened is I was sleeping. And I literally felt like somebody was pounding on the floor and it woke me out of my sleep. And I didn't realize that that was my heart that was making that noise and I was having a panic attack in my sleep. Then the next time I had the panic attack was at work. I had to run to the bathroom because I felt something happening and I didn't know what it was. Um, because this time I'm awake and I had a panic attack and I was like, at least at that moment in time, I was aware enough to be like, you have to get out of this stressful job. You have to get out of this. This is not conducive to your mental health. You have to get out. So I ended up quitting that job. So now again, we're dealing with financial stress of trying to like really make ends meet. We need a two income household, but things are just very rocky. And I ended up quitting to focus on my business full time. And at that time, um, I had an interior design business. So things were shaky, trying to get clients. It was just a very stressful time again. Um, and then let's fast forward now from that to 2024. In 2024, I noticed that I was having a lot of shoulder pain and I didn't know why. And I ended up, the job that I was in had amazing benefits. And one of the benefits that they had was physical therapy. And so I ended up going to physical therapy and no matter what, like the therapist did, like it would help for a short period of time, but then the pain will come back. And then I noticed that it was a sharp shooting pain coming down my arm. So finally, she's like, I'm going to refer you to an orthopedic surgeon because this seems like it's something more than just like what PT can do for you. So I went and saw the specialist, got an MRI done. When I went to see him initially, he was like, it looks like you have frozen shoulder, but let's get you an MRI to make sure. Got the MRI results, and he's like, you have a tear on your shoulder, which isn't such a big deal, but the MRI shows that you have a huge cyst in your shoulder area and it's pinching on your nerve, which is why you're getting that excruciating sharp pain going down your arm. He's like, you need to have surgery. So I was like, what? I wasn't expecting that. And we're thinking that it happened when, I mean, we don't know for sure why, but we think that it was probably a time when I was walking my dog, who's an American XL bully. He's a big boy, and he yanked me to go chase a squirrel. And I literally felt like my arm came off my body. So we're thinking that's what it was, but we don't know. So I ended up having surgery Halloween of 2024 on my shoulder. And what that forced me to do was to finally stop and rest and sit still. Because I was already like on my soft life journey. I was already on like putting boundaries. I was already on saying no. I was already doing a lot of those things to keep my mental health in check. And I thought I was doing a great job, right? I really did. Because I had started meditating, I started grounding, I started spending time in nature. I was spending a lot of time with my dog in the park. I was like not being on my phone. I was just like really taking it easy. And I, like I said, I thought I was really doing a great job. I wasn't even scratching the surface. So what this surgery forced me to do was to actually stop, because I couldn't drive. I couldn't I couldn't cook. I couldn't bathe myself. I couldn't walk the dog. I couldn't, like, I didn't realize how much I used my shoulder until I couldn't use my shoulder. It's crazy. I couldn't lift bags. I couldn't, like, I was forced to have people do for me. I was forced to be I was forced to stop being a superwoman. I was forced to rest. So what ended up happening now, looking back and with working with my therapist and things, because when I got the shoulder surgery, I had to do PT, and the PT was not working. Like my range of motion was not coming back in the way that it should have. It was taking way longer for my shoulder to heal than what it typically would take anybody with the surgery that I had done. And I remember going from PT specialist to PT specialist to PT specialist until I finally, after like maybe the fourth or fifth time, I found the PT specialist that I'm with now, who is amazing. And we were able to get most of my range of motion back. And what ended up happening was, before I get into that story, let me just say that when I was out for the count for my surgery and healing, I said to myself, oh, I'm just going to take 2 weeks and then I should be back to normal. This exhaustion came over me where I could not stop sleeping. All I did was sleep. All I did was sleep, except for going to PT and going to see my therapist. All I did was sleep. And I couldn't understand why I was sleeping so much. And my therapist told me, she goes, because your body finally feels safe enough to rest. Your body is forced right now to take a break because you are recuperating from surgery. So all the years of you hustling, all the years of you running like a chicken without a head, all of the years of you commuting, all of the years of you running around, doing the most, is finally coming to an end. And so your body is exhaling for the first time. Your body is finally recalibrating. Your body is finally resting. Your nervous system is finally coming down from all this high alert, all this high cortisol. It's finally, what's happening is you have disassociated from your body for so long that now you are reintegrating into your body, and you are coming back to yourself basically. And that's going to lead me to something else. But before I go there, yes, I could not heal from my surgery. And I remember that I started getting excruciating neck pain. And we didn't know where it was coming from. And then I was getting excruciating pain coming down my arm. And it was just like, what is going on? Just when I feel like we're getting on the right path, everything comes crumbling down. So I ended up getting referred to a spine specialist to look into what was happening with my neck. And we did MRIs, we ran all the tests, and it turns out that I was dealing with a lot of inflammation that was causing the like an impingement on my nerve that was causing all of this to like go down into all the places. And so he recommended PT and cortisone shots, which eventually helped, right? But then throughout all of this, I was the hand pain wouldn't go away. And I was referred to a hand specialist from my orthopedic surgeon, and that hand specialist, this was around maybe March or April, she was booked out all the way to June. And so because I was desperate and I needed answers now, I was like, I'm just going to go make an appointment with whoever the hell is available at this hospital. And that's what I did. And it was a huge mistake because that doctor was the worst doctor ever. I remember going into his office and he basically told me that nothing is wrong with me, that it's all in my head, and I just need PT. And I said to him, can I please get an EMG test because I know something's wrong. And at this point, I was already going down the rabbit hole of Google. So I had a strong inclination that I had carpal tunnel syndrome. But the only way to diagnose that is through an EMG test. So I basically begged him for the test, and he was like, well, it seems like you really want this test, even though I don't think they're going to find anything. I'm going to give it to you anyway. So I said, thank you very much. And he goes, you don't even need to come for a follow-up appointment because they're not going to find anything. Just call the office for your results. I wanted to punch him in the face. But anyway, I went and got my EMG test done, and it confirmed exactly what I thought. I had carpal tunnel syndrome in both hands. That was the experience that I had with that doctor. And finally, I ended up getting an appointment with the doctor that my shoulder surgeon had finally recommended, who was amazing and ended up giving me my carpal tunnel surgery um, in the summer. So it was about maybe what was it, like 6 to 8 months that I had two surgeries. I had the shoulder surgery and then the carpal tunnel release surgery in August. And that's another thing that happens with chronic pain. Like you constantly have to advocate for yourself with these doctors because a lot of them will try to make you feel like what you're experiencing is all in your head because pain is subjective. We don't look like we're in pain, but we are in pain. And I remember when I would go to my doctor's appointments, I would purposely look not put together just so they could believe that I was in pain. Like I wouldn't wear lipstick. I sometimes I wouldn't wear my concealer. Like I would look like something was wrong with me just so I could be taken seriously. Because if I went into the doctor like this, they'd be like, you're fine. And it's like, no, I'm not fine. I ended up having to go to my niece's wedding in May. And I bring this up because this was a crucial point in my healing journey and in my chronic pain journey. Because during this trip, this destination wedding, we ended up going to Mexico for her wedding in May. During this time, I was actually, throughout this entire time from October to May, I was on disability. And I was grateful enough to have a job where our benefits package, like I said, was amazing. And I was able to be on disability, still getting 100% of my salary, which is unheard of. Um, and in May, I was coming to the end of that disability and it was going to turn into long-term disability. And I ended up getting denied for it. Um, but anyway, we ended up in Mexico. And during this time, my niece and I had a very unexpected conversation of her really thanking me for showing up for her and providing a safe space for her back in her childhood when it was a very traumatic time for her. And she brought up a lot of things that I have forgotten about because, as I mentioned before, the way that I would cope with stress back then is I would disassociate from my body. I always felt like I was floating above myself and I could kind of see the movie playing of my life, but I wasn't in the movie. So I wasn't feeling anything that was happening in the movie. I could just kind of witness it, if that makes any sense. And for anybody who's gone through a traumatic event, you may understand what I'm talking about. And I remember she was telling me all these things that she remembered from her childhood and from me being there for her and providing a safe space for her, a safe home for her, and just giving her the things that she always needed and wanted. And it sparked a huge remembering of a lot of things that I had blocked out to keep myself safe. It was the way that my body was protecting itself. So when I returned home from the destination wedding, the pain that I was experiencing, I can't even describe in words what that was. All I know is that I'd rather give birth without any medication than to feel the pain that I was feeling. And I remember when I was explaining the gallbladder stones, like that was nothing compared to the pain I was feeling in my body when I came back from Mexico. It was excruciating pain that I would literally I would jump off the sofa from the pain that would come into my body, and it was shooting down. It was like shooting pain and numbness and tingling, and I was getting migraines, and it was like all coming at once. Like I felt like my body was on fire and nothing I could do would stop it. And I felt so out of control. I felt so helpless because I didn't know what was happening. And I'm the type of person that I could deal with whatever chaos is happening as long as I know what it is. But if I don't know what it is, I feel like it just makes it worse. And so I was going down the rabbit hole of YouTube and Google of trying to figure out what the fuck was wrong with me, because I was also trying to schedule an appointment with a neurologist that I had seen. Oh, this actually reminds me of a piece I forgot that I had seen after having my third child. I was getting a lot of vertigo and dizzy spells and migraines, and I didn't know what it was. And I thought maybe it was like postpartum because this was like right after I had him. So I ended up seeing a neurologist. She sent me for MRIs. Everything came out clean. So I was experiencing all these things, and I was like, what is this? Do I have multiple sclerosis? Do I have lupus? Do I have fibromyalgia? Is it like rheumatoid arthritis? Like, what the fuck is going on with me? And it was such a scary time because I it was like I was stuck in this like vortex of the unknown. And it was like, I need to know what is going on. As a former control freak, I need to know what the fuck is going on. I just know that whatever is going on is not normal at all, at all. And I need to get to the bottom of it. And so I finally was able to get an appointment with a nurse practitioner at a neurologist center at one of like the best hospitals in the city. And I went in, and for the first time, somebody listened to me. And I didn't feel like I was going crazy. And I cried so much at that appointment. I cried so much at that appointment because I finally felt seen and I felt heard. She sent me for a bunch of blood work. She sent me for MRIs of my brain, of my spine, because again, I thought I had multiple sclerosis because I checked off all the boxes. They didn't find anything in my MRIs, so I didn't get diagnosed with that. But I went for an EMG test of my legs because I was getting this like excruciating sharp pain coming down from my legs all the way down to my toes. And they found that I had like a neuropathy damage to my nerves that was causing the shooting, throbbing pain, right? Um, and for the first time, I felt like we knew what was happening. I got prescribed some medication to help with the nerve pain to stop all of those symptoms from happening, but I took the medication like once or twice, but I stopped because it just made me feel so tired, like I couldn't function no matter when I took the medication. So it took me down this rabbit hole of trying to figure out, how do we live and deal with this chronic pain that is happening in a holistic way? And it led me to seeing the common denominator in a lot of this of like, I don't want to call it personality traits, but what is the word I'm looking for? For now, we're just going to use personality traits because I can't think of the word. I had it written down. I don't know what happened to it. But there's a certain, that's it, coping styles of certain people that are susceptible to chronic pain and chronic illnesses. And those things are control freaks, people pleasers, people that say yes when they mean no, people who don't have boundaries, nurturers, caregivers. Um, what are the other ones? Oh, Jesus, I wish I would have written these down. Um, A-type personalities, people who don't know how to rest, people who, for now, let's just say that's the list. There's more, but I can't think of it. Perfectionist is another one. And I was like, okay, I see. So basically what was happening to me is my nervous system was like shutting down. It was like, we need to get to the, like, and through my research, I found that suppressed emotions get trapped in the body. They get comfortable in the body. They find a home in the body. And when certain instances and events happen in our lives and we don't express our emotions, they just get compounded and compounded and compounded and compounded into the point where they have nowhere else to go because they've taken up all the space in your body. And so when the chronic pain starts to flare up, it is basically our body trying to talk to us and say no, no more. That's it. And so that is the way of the body communicating to us, is through symptoms of migraines, flare, like pain, shooting pain, throbbing pain, numbness, tingling, stomach issues, and all the things, because it's the only way any of us are going to listen, right? And so this is what I found out was happening to me, right? Because for the most part my tests were clean, right? But the pain was there. Long story short, I ended up losing my job where I was working because they said it was layoffs. But I always feel that the universe and God always puts you where you need to be. And so I didn't fight it because, again, chronic pain is subjective and we look like we're leading a normal life, but nobody knows the pain that we're enduring on the inside because we're great at masking things. So how I live my life now and how my chronic pain, I see it as a gift now from the universe, is that it forced me to rest. It forced me to stop doing the most. It forced me to burn my superwoman cape. It forced me to pour into myself. It forced me to have a relationship with my body, to have my body lead me instead of me leading my body into burnout, into exhaustion, into stress. Whenever I felt my body feeling exhausted, like now, if I feel tired, I take a break, I rest, I take a nap, I reschedule things, I make sure there's enough white space in my calendar so that I can move things around. If I know that I'm going to have to do something that's emotionally exhausting, that I can't get out of, I know that in order for me to cope and in order for me to avoid any flare-ups, I have to take the rest of the week easy. I allow people to show up for me now. I allow people to fend for themselves now. I communicate when I'm overwhelmed. I let people know when I need a break from them. I pour into myself before I do anything else, because I know that if I don't do these things, and in addition to caring for my body, like now I am all about mind, body, soul. Like, I check in with myself, I journal, I do a lot of slow body movements to make sure that I am recalibrating the energy in my body, that I'm releasing stored emotions. And I do all these things now because I understand now the relationship that we have with our bodies, and that we only get one body. You don't get a replacement. You don't have like another body hanging in the closet that when this one expires, you go to the next one. No, it expires, you're done. That's it. And so you get one body. And so now I make it a point to nurture myself. I make it a point to check in with my body. I make it a point to pour into my body. I make it a point to feed myself nourishing foods, to um do the things physically that I need to do to stay in shape, whether that's stretching, walking, meditating, journaling, right? I make sure that I take the time to do all those things before I start doing anything else in my life, because now I understand the importance of my body, because I never want to go back to where I was before. And if you want to know more details as to how I was able to get to the other side of my chronic pain, I'm going to be dropping something very special in the coming weeks. And if you want to know all about it, it has to deal with how I ended my chronic pain. Make sure that you're signed up to my email list. I'm going to drop the link below so you can click on it and get on the email list and not miss out of all the things that I learned on my journey through chronic pain. Um, but what one of the things that I realized, because this was one of the things I couldn't grasp my head around, is I was doing so much healing work, I didn't understand why my body was breaking down. And now I understand that your body cannot, and I wrote this down, your body cannot sustain without doing the work to release trapped emotions. So you can try, but it's not going to stick because your body is not going to allow it. You don't have the capacity, right? Which leads me to my selfish era of, nurturers and high performers, or like people who are always there for everybody else. Like, we consider that being selfish, and I say that in quotes because to us that's what it feels like. But to normal people and people who are not like that, they're like, that's not being selfish, that's just loving yourself, right? Of, I give myself everything that I need before I even think about anybody else. I say no and let it be a complete sentence, right? And I do all these things because, again, I don't want to end up as a burden to my children or my husband because I didn't take care of myself, because I ran my body to the ground, because I burnt out, because I was doing the most when I didn't need to, right? And I see this chronic pain as a blessing now, of like, because if this never happened to me, I would have kept going. And in my mind, I would have thought, oh, because I meditate and because I take walks in the parks, I'm fine. You know, I'm, but no, I was over here worrying about everybody else and not worrying about myself. And I always look at my dog as an angel from earth, because he's my emotional support animal. That's my baby. He's my third son. Call it what you want, but that's my baby. Ain't nobody gonna mess with my baby. And he knew exactly what I needed, and he said, you need to rest, and I'm gonna make you rest. And that's why I look at my chronic pain as a gift now, because it allows me not only to be aware of how I'm treating myself and my body, but also has given me the tools to put a stop to it. And not just put a stop to it, but it also, like, I have a daughter. I have two girls, two boys, and I'm able to model for them what's healthy and what's normal, instead of living through trauma and living through what we think is normal, of pushing through and doing the most and being superwoman and always solving problems. Like, no, I want them to know that it's okay to take a break. It's okay to say no. It's okay to do for yourself before you do for someone else. It's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to pour into your body. It's okay to take care of yourself. it's okay to do nothing and let that be okay. Just also allowing people to fend for themselves, allowing people to figure things out on their own, like my children. Like, I'm always the go-to person for them, and it's like now they're getting older, now they're teenagers. It's like, no, you need to learn to figure things out on your own. I'm always going to be here to guide you and to show you the right way, but making them self-sufficient, making sure that they're going to be able to survive in this world once me and my husband are long and gone. Setting boundaries with them, setting boundaries with my husband of like, no, during the mornings, this is my me time where I meditate, I have my coffee, there's no yelling in the house, I'm playing my soft jazz, I am making the food for the dogs, and we are having a slow morning. No complaining, no raising your voice, no listening to any loud music, like being very conscious of how I am spending my days, how I am not only regulating my nervous system, but making sure that my nervous system just is not on high alert, and making sure that I am staying in this, I think they call it the parasympathetic. I can never pronounce that word. I just think of the word parachute, where I'm in this constant safety place when it comes to my nervous system, and I'm no longer on high alert. I'm no longer like putting out fires. I'm no longer on edge. I'm no longer walking fast. I'm no longer like, I still talk fast. I think that's a Latina thing or a New York thing. I don't know. But just being very conscious of not rushing anymore, of just really being very soft with myself and my body, and allowing my body to dictate how things are going to move for me, right? Of if I'm working on a special project and I notice that my hands start to hurt, or my neck starts to hurt, or my shoulders, I'm feeling tension or whatever, that to me tells me you need to slow it down. You need to take a break. You need to get up and stretch. You need to eat. You need to maybe take a step in the backyard and sit in the sun for 5 minutes. Like, you need to stop doing the most. And it has allowed me to reshift my life and how I've been living, and really look back at my life to see how I got here. Not to say that I caused my own chronic pain, um, because I won't say that, but I see the choices that I made in my life that have caused me to end up where I am today. And all in all, I'm grateful for this journey. I'm grateful for the chronic pain because it taught me a huge lesson. It has really given me this awareness of how much do you love yourself? You, because I used to always be like, oh, self-love, self-love, self-care, self-love, self-care. Like, okay, but if if your body's breaking down, how much do you really love yourself? Do you love yourself enough to take a break? Do you love yourself enough to say no? Do you love yourself enough to set a boundary? Do you love yourself enough to not pick up that phone when everybody and their mother's calling you because you're the only one who can solve the problem? Do you know how to, like, do you love yourself enough to rest? Do you love yourself enough to take a day off? Do you love yourself enough to put your phone on do not disturb? Do you love yourself enough to do absolutely nothing and not feel guilty for it? Do you love yourself enough to not do the things that you don't want to do, but you do it, but you like, you will still do it because you don't want to let people down? No. And I'm in this era now where it's like, I check in with myself, I check in with my body, I check in with my emotions, I feel all the feelings, I say the things that I want to say, because that was another thing that I always had a huge challenge with, expressing myself. And like, once I hit my 40s, I got into this thing, like, I didn't care, I would tell you whatever, right? But for the people that I loved and the people who were close to me, I would still hold back on a lot, because as a cancer, like, we see everything and feel everything. And sometimes we don't share our point of view with people because we're trying to protect them. We don't want to hurt them, and and our words can cut deep. And so we hold back a lot to not hurt people's feelings, the ones that we love the most. But that is not a good thing, because at the end of the day, what we're doing is we are not letting you know how you could show up better for us. So we're not letting these people know that we need them, or we need their support, or we could use some comforting, right? And so I'm sure I left a lot of things out, because perimenopause, my memory is not what it used to be. But I'm hoping that by me sharing my journey of dealing with chronic pain, and if you're somebody who's dealing with that now, because now I'm on the other side of it, and I'm actually brewing something very special for my chronic pain community, of how I was able to get to the other side of chronic pain and live a pain-free life. If you're interested in that, make sure that you are signed up to my email list. I'm going to put a link down below, because I want to share the medicine that I learned and the wisdom that I learned through my journey to help others when it comes to living a pain-free life, and also just getting through this very hard journey of chronic pain and all that comes with it. Um, but I wanted to share my story because I know that I'm not alone, and I know that people are dealing with this. I'm sending you all the love, and I want you to know that what you feel is real. You're not going crazy. And there's a there's a way back to normalcy, and that normalcy is going to look different, because it's going to force you to really combat a lot of the trauma that you haven't dealt with, and a lot of the unspoken emotions and undealt with emotions that are still in your body. And I want you to try to look at your chronic pain as a gift. And I know that right now, when you're in it, it doesn't feel like it. Trust me. If somebody would have said that to me when I was going through my chronic pain, I would have probably punched the screen. But now that I'm on the other side, I see the gift that it is. Your chronic pain is your body's way of getting your attention, so that you can finally face the things that you've been avoiding. You could finally get to the heart of the matter of all the things that you haven't dealt with. And so I want to leave you with those thoughts. I wish you nothing but healing. I send you nothing but love and light. And you are going to get through this. You are going to be okay. You are. And I will see you in the next video.